The Aldis podcast is brought to you by Aldis International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our ServiceNow series, where we interview the best and brightest of the industry to share their story, advice, and views on the exciting world of ServiceNow and digital transformation.
Hi everyone, it's Mark Kelly. I hope you're doing really well wherever you are in the world. I am delighted to welcome Tom Watson. Tom is the CEO and President of AMI. Tom, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Tom, before I jump into the world of AMI and the work that you do in the world of ServiceNow, can you tell us a little bit of a background about you and how you came into this world?
Yeah, I backed into this whole industry of hardware asset management accidentally as a developer 20 years ago. I was working for a software company as a developer, and we were building barcode scanning applications to automate physical wall-to-wall inventories. And a company went out of business. It wasn't my fault, I promise. The company just shut down one day, just long story there, but we realized there was an opportunity to build asset tracking tools that we could offer to large enterprises to help automate the hardware asset tracking function that hardware asset managers need to maintain accurate inventory. So we built a tool. Me and a partner just built a tool. And then over the years, we developed partnerships with leading enterprise IT asset management providers. Back in the day, it was like Computer Associates and then Hewlett Packard. More, for the past 12 years, it's all ServiceNow. The large enterprises use these asset management platforms to manage their hardware, software contracts, all of the requirements for maintaining costs and satisfying auditing compliance and improving service levels. All the goals of asset management are built on these ServiceNow or HP Asset Manager platforms. But these enterprises couldn't keep track and have accurate hardware asset data. So they would come to us to implement typically barcode. Hey, back in the day, it was, who are your barcode guys, so that we could give our technicians scanners so they could keep track of stuff because they'll never go update the stupid database. And all the reports and dashboards that we've built, we can't trust because the data is inaccurate. So that's kind of where we came from. And it's been about partnering with these large enterprise asset management systems that didn't have that good barcode and RFID automation needed to keep the asset data accurate.
So if we're bringing people into this world that may not understand the kind of complexities about how this can scale very, very big, you can be thinking about a company that might have cell phones, or maybe it could be PCs or laptops. And there's an awful lot of moving parts because as organizations grow, they're taking on more assets, and then you need to keep track of these assets, which I can imagine if you're doing this as a manual process, this is a very, very labor-intensive process to have with a lot of errors probably thrown into it as well.
That's right. The larger the scale, the more activity, the more assets moving around, the more transactions, the more difficult the problem becomes. And there's kind of two competing things that have to happen. You got to get a lot of people, a lot of technicians, stock managers, data center technicians, break fix end user technicians. You need them to follow a consistent process. They're not allowed to close tickets without providing the asset information. If they swap an asset, you've got to record the serial number that you've swapped in and out. And what you're introducing is more latency and drag to their work. The technicians are being measured on service level compliance. How many tickets do we close? We can't let our SLAs breach. And now these asset management guys who are concerned about compliance, finance, data security, are coming in and adding these new steps to this incident management process. These guys are trying to just get their work done, close tickets. Now there's these new requirements to come in to go and capture accurate asset information. So it adds complexity and it adds work to their already busy workload. And it's a constant problem because the technicians, the ITSM staff or the service management staff, they're not measured on asset accuracy. So you're telling them to do more work that they don't benefit from. So then that makes this problem worse because the technicians and the people interacting with the data are more resistant to completing their work. So then, in order to make that even possible, you've got to simplify and automate that as much as possible using technology. And this is where we try to come in and combine steps within their closing tickets and asset management transactions into one simple form that they can access on their mobile device, or just implement scanning solutions that make it really easy for them to just follow these processes. So you have to have that control. You can't just let techs send spreadsheets or just log in and make whatever updates they want. They have to follow a consistent process. You have to monitor those processes, make sure that they're following those processes, but you've got to automate it and make it simple for them in order to get that adoption. And those things are kind of at odds. Like the more data you need these people to track and capture, the harder it is for them to do that quickly. That's kind of the challenge that we find with larger scale asset managers. How do we get that right balance of process control, but simplifying and automating? Let's not try to collect too much data to make it as simple as possible, and we can achieve more success.
Yeah, and even if you just go to a basic example, you've got people leaving your organization and you've got people who are joining an organization. So there's people that are joining. They need their laptops, they need all the different types of assets, their cell phone, for example, and you need a proper procedure and track it. Same way if somebody leaves, you need to be able to get those PCs, get all the different login details, cell phone, and then be able to actually make sure you've got one version of the truth in terms of what you have and what you don't have, because you've probably got all the kind of shadow IT and all these different kind of worries or concern that from a leader's perspective, they would love to have like a simplified dashboard to kind of know, right, what's our current inventory, what's missing, what's not, and then kind of working on that.
Yeah, I think from an executive standpoint, they typically don't care about the details of technology or tools. They want that dashboard. They want to know that the enterprise or the organization is getting hardware assets to the staff that need them. Not just staff, but to the projects or teams. The organization needs hardware in order to do its business. They need to make sure that equipment is delivered and installed and maintained quickly and at the minimum cost to the business. Otherwise, they don't really want to know about what's happening. They just need to make sure that the business gets the hardware that they need without spending too much money and complying with all regulations and laws so they don't go to jail or get fired. Otherwise, that's the executive view. And then, as you can imagine, it's all of the transactions with the day-to-day onboarding and offboarding of employees. We've always had this problem of employees starting to work from home. Obviously, with COVID, that just blew up. Everybody was calling us. How do we track all this movement of assets that are just flooding from the office to home locations? How do we audit and verify that people receive the equipment that they've got at their homes? That problem always exists, and it just really amped up. But you can imagine all of these different transactions that are occurring, and how do we keep those records up to date? The executives want that one view of that dashboard, but how can they trust the data behind those reports? And there's there's two real focus areas that we engage when we engage with customers. One is automate the life cycle tasks themselves. What I mean is receiving gear, stocking, assigning to production, assigning to a user, assigning to a data center, swapping, reclaiming, restocking, potentially restocking or retiring and disposing assets. So those are the life cycle stages. And the goal there is to record each transaction as it happens in real time. Don't wait until you get back to your desk to go log in at the end of the day and update your tickets. Capture the change as it occurs. But then you must regularly audit your environment. All of that asset data has to be audited on a regular and organized scale to verify that it happened. It's not about people cheating. There are cheaters and people try to bypass process, but as much as you can try to automate these individual transactions and hope that an end user is going to self-certify that they've received something, people are busy, people get distracted and people make mistakes. So these transactions will fail to be recorded regularly. So a regular audit process has to come in behind it and verify the information. So that means doing, regular stockroom inventories and regular sample auditing of your office campus locations, and regular end user self-certification audits where you continually ask users to verify that they have the equipment, constantly test that database, find any errors and correct them, and then record accuracy. So you can determine, like, these locations, these regions of the country, or these departments are the ones that are having the most difficulty keeping their asset information up to date. So you can investigate the problems and see if it's a technology, process, or personnel issue, and that sort of thing. So automate those tracking tasks, but regularly audit to, it's kind of the trust but verify mantra we have.
And then how are you working with the ServiceNow platform to kind of stay up to date with it, but also introduce new ideas to try to help customers kind of utilize it, but also kind of take advantage of, the art of the possible with the platform?
So good question. So about 12 years ago, we re-platformed our AssetTrack server. We rebuilt it on ServiceNow, and we worked very closely with ServiceNow product management team, the asset management product management team, to build our capabilities on the out-of-box ServiceNow hardware asset management system. As opposed to, there's other companies that have built asset management systems that are using the ServiceNow platform, but they create custom tables and they build their own data repository within ServiceNow. But what we did is we built on top of the existing ServiceNow hardware asset management platform, which means that the work that we do, the automation, the process control, and the auditing that we do is helping asset managers manage the ServiceNow hardware asset database, so that if they implement, other processes, that it works perfectly with ServiceNow's configuration management and service management. We wanted to make sure that we were building our capability in lockstep with what ServiceNow was doing. Now that, so that as ServiceNow introduces new products or customers implement other third-party products that are working with that same hardware data, we're working and blending in well there. So that was kind of our first decision there, and then of course by re-platforming into the ServiceNow platform, that really helps us address enterprise information security concerns. Companies audit us all the time and they want to know, hey, you're a SaaS provider, how do you protect our asset data? And we can say, you don't have to worry about that. We don't access your data. We're, operating inside that your ServiceNow ecosystem. So that's the architecture that we chose in terms of, how to build the technology. And then, because we're working on that hardware asset database, we're able to bring in our expertise in lifecycle tracking, bring our barcode and automation forms, our advanced auditing capability, the ability to schedule and coordinate and define audits, all with the purpose of managing that out-of-box, hardware asset management data. And then the metrics and the history and the clocking and the other analytics that we capture, we store those in the ServiceNow platform as well. And that just provides a better picture into your process, your data accuracy, the metrics that you need to fine tune your process. But we make sure that the data, which is really the end of the day, what companies need is accurate hardware data. That's ServiceNow's data.
When you look at the future of the platform, and we talked about generative AI, knowledge, and all the different types of applications of that, where do you see the platform of ServiceNow evolving to?
Oh boy, as the ServiceNow platform itself, everybody's adopting AI to do predictive analytics. I'm not going to go and say I'm an AI expert or that I understand exactly everywhere the ServiceNow platform is going. Where we see the ServiceNow hardware asset management platform going is expanding beyond technology, meaning that there will be advances in technology. And predictive forecasting of asset consumption, pricing, more accurate budgeting and forecasting into the future is where we see hardware asset management going. By accurately tracking the consumption of assets and the asset life cycles, histories, by looking backwards at that historical data, we see more and more intelligence to help you predict budgeting and consumption requirements in the future. By looking at how long your average stock dwell times are and what your turnaround times are, your vendor performances are, that's going to provide more and more visibility into the future. And we see AI and machine learning providing more and more accuracy into those forecasts. As for the hardware asset management solutions or technologies within ServiceNow, what we see is those evolving into more managed services. Using the ServiceNow platform, we see enterprises still continuing to consolidate their business solutions on the ServiceNow platform. They want that central repository of data. They want to control and own that data. But the hardware asset management function itself, we see that being outsourced over time. There are organizations that provide the asset management expertise, the ServiceNow technology expertise, the development expertise, as well as the ability to train and onboard technicians, to import and export data, to create ServiceNow dashboards, and to make the ServiceNow hardware asset management solutions deliver the value of compliance and savings and availability. That service can be purchased from an expert company as opposed to being developed internally. We see it following the same path as software asset management. More and more companies are using service providers to provide their service or their software asset management compliance services. We see that moving into hardware. Like, why have your own stock rooms, receiving staff and imaging technicians and disposal services? Organizations are already, outsourcing their disposal services. We see the entire asset lifecycle being managed by third parties. And we've seen that can, because those service providers can provide their services to multiple clients, the costs of hardware asset management personnel, consulting, software licensing can be spread across multiple clients. So we see that an organization can enjoy a better hardware asset management outcome at a fraction of the cost. We've seen that play out with federal DoD, United States Department of Defense, government enterprises that, arguably have a lot of internal costs. We've seen, 50% reduction in their hardware asset management costs by using a third-party provider. It's just like one data point. So that's where we see that the industry going. It's less about technology features in the ServiceNow platform regarding hardware asset management. We see more the outsourcing of those services. A problem that's occurred in the past of outsourcing services is you lose control, and the quality is often suffers of the service. How many times have you offshored or outsourced software development? The developers cost 1/3 of the price, right? But they end up taking 5 times as long, and you end up throwing away the software, so it ends up costing you more. So the beauty about having the ServiceNow platform managed by the customer and the hardware asset management data and the process metrics and the historical logs that prove compliance with service level agreements, that will still be maintained by the customer. The customer will own the data, and the service provider will interface with the customer's ServiceNow system. So now, as an executive, I can outsource that hardware asset management function, but maintain control of the data. So just like you trust, but you verify your internal staff for managing hardware, you'll be able to trust but verify that the third-party provider is meeting their compliance requirements.
Which is great, because it allows you to focus on what your core business is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's kind of where this came from. Me and other business owners in this industry, we've just seen like companies beat their heads against, try to reinvent the wheel of how to, automate receiving processes and how to automate auditing. And we're like, guys, this is not what you're good at.
And this is the way of the future, right? Companies focusing on what they're doing and then partnering with everyone who they need to so they can be in that niche offering and kind of seeing to add value. Where previous people were competing, now they're collaborating, and there's so many different opportunities for growth. It's particularly good. Tom Watson, CEO and President of AMI, thank you very much for your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the All This Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.allthis.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.